Live from Kiev, I'm Yalda Hakim. This is BBC News. In Ukraine, 3 people have been killed in a Russian attack on the Black Sea port of Odessa. We'll be live with the latest. The European Parliament drafts a code of conduct to regulate artificial intelligence in an attempt to limit potential harm. And we bring you an exclusive report from North Korea, where food is so scarce people are starving to death. Hello and welcome to this special edition of the Daily Global, coming to you live from the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. Well, it's just past 8 p.m. in the evening, and as you can see, the sun is about to go down, but the weather has warmed up over the last few days, which is really helping the Ukrainians with their counteroffensive. President Volodymyr Zelensky was complaining just a few days ago, saying that the rains were impacting those who were fighting on the ground. But it's now 476 days since this conflict began, 16 months since the fighting. And each night, the air raid sirens more or less go off across this country, reminding these people that they are at war. Let's just bring you the very latest and show you these pictures that have come to us from the southern port of Odessa, where at least 3 people have died and more than 20 were left injured following Russian missile strikes that were launched there. Now, as we said, we also saw airstrikes in different parts of the country, in the eastern Donetsk region, where we understand another 3 people were also killed. Now, the pictures you're seeing from Odessa, a Ukrainian military official says a retail warehouse was hit, as well as a business center and shops. Ukraine's Air Force said it had destroyed 3 Russian missiles and 9 drones during the overnight strikes. Odessa is vital to Ukraine's grain exports through the Black Sea port. The Russian attacks come as Ukraine's counteroffensive in the south and east has been gaining momentum, and we have been reporting about that, with Ukrainian forces saying that they have taken over several villages in the southeast of the country, although other reports are saying that a number of their tanks have been destroyed. The United States has pledged an extra $325 million, and that includes more of those Bradley tanks that were destroyed over the last few days. So just some developments over the last few hours. Now, a little earlier, I spoke to a Ukrainian MP, Alexei Gocharenko, who spoke to me from Odessa. He said he was woken up by the sound of the missiles, including his family, and he just gave me a bit of a sense of what was going on. Have a listen.
The center of the city was attacked. The explosion was, one of explosions was just 250 meters from my house where I was with my family. So we woke up, it was 2:30 a.m. when it happened. Unfortunately, there were killed people again, and that is completely civilian area. There are universities here, residential buildings. One of the most famous Ukrainian universities, National Polytechnic University of Odessa, is heavily damaged. Now, so that's one more just brutal terrorist attack of Russia against absolutely civilian, peaceful people.
And just tell us about the situation now. Are emergency workers still working in the area? Have they managed to pull people out from under the rubble?
The rescue operation has finished, and we know that 3 people are killed. More than 20 are wounded. 21 building is damaged near this, the biggest explosion. 21 building, just imagine, some of them probably will never be recovered. And also there is a supermarket there. There is a center, it's called Interest in Science, where I was taking my children there. And we definitely are shocked but we are not threatened by this. And if Putin thinks that by such attacks he can destroy our will to struggle, that will never happen.
Of course, Odessa is incredibly strategic. It's virtually the center of this grain deal that was done with Russia as well.
Absolutely. And I think that Odessa today Like yesterday, again, Putin said that he would not go for Kiev anymore. Definitely, we do not believe him. He just can't go to Kiev anymore because of Ukrainian army. Thanks to Ukrainian army and thanks to the Western support. And one more thanks to the United Kingdom for all support we are receiving and for leading this support of the free world. But he again mentioned Odessa, and definitely Odessa is the way to occupied by Russians Transnistria. Odessa is the biggest city on the Black Sea, and Odessa is the heart of the grain deal. And yesterday again, Putin spoke about grain deal, saying that he doesn't want to continue this grain deal. So he wants again as much chaos as possible. And I think that this attack was one of the signs of this too.
That was Alexei Goncharenko, Ukrainian MP, speaking to me a little earlier live from Odessa. Let's just go back to Odessa and we can speak now to Hannah Shelest. She's a Ukrainian security analyst. Thank you so much, Hannah, for joining us here on the program. It really was a very difficult night for the residents of Odessa.
Yes, definitely. And, you know, for me, it was the very difficult morning because I realized that I have been working in that building for several years in the past. And still, my friend's clinic, one of the best ophthalmology clinic, is in that building, completely ruined, plus the office of another friend. So that is the places where you can understand and feel each of the block, each of the room, because you perfectly know not only district, but the very particular building that is currently totally destroyed. I just talked an hour ago with them, and they said that most probably the whole business center will be just demolished.
Yeah, because what we're seeing and hearing, it's mainly civilian infrastructure that was hit.
That's absolutely just civilian infrastructure. For you to understand what you have, it is not the very downtown, but this part is still central Odessa. You have the governor office, you have the Polytechnic University, you have business center, and you have McDonald's. That's all you have de facto at that place. What we understand that most probably this missile was hoping to target absolutely different goal, a little bit further, some storage facilities, because this night we had two incidents, two places. One is this that you're showing in the video, and the second one is just 1 kilometer away from there. It is where a supermarket storage facility is being. There are another videos from there where only Pepsi Cola and some still water bottles you can see on the video. And now Russians, because they're afraid of the counteroffense, they're targeting as much as possible of all storage facilities, assuming that it should be some kind of the Western ammunition being prepared to go to the front line. That's why Odessa is targeted, if you look geographically around the town, predominantly at the places, and then you see it in their social networks. Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that they targeted a place of the Western ammunition and stationing.
Hannah, yeah, Hannah, because I mean, we heard earlier there from the Ukrainian MP who said that, of course, Odessa is the epicenter of this grain deal as well. So it is an important deal that Russia agreed to.
Yes, but if you remember the year ago, like we signed this agreement in July last year, and the Russians targeted Odessa port less than 20 hours after they signed a document. And what is interesting in their explanation the next hour, they said that according to the agreement, they promised not to target only the port facilities involved in the grain deal. From me, at least my understanding of English language, port facilities, it is the whole territory of the port, and involved in the grain deal, meaning three ports, Odessa, Pivdennye, and Chornomorsk. However, the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs explained that no, we meant only several berths where the actual grain ships would be uploading and doing some other procedures. So that's why for Russians, they don't care when they target the ports. And by the way, just a few weeks ago, they targeted the very port itself, the berths that being just, I don't know, something like 200, 300 meters from the ships that been prepared for the grain loading.
Yeah, and Hannah, we hear about the effectiveness of the air defense system, but of course they don't always aren't always able to strike back when these Russian missiles attack. And of course, while the Ukrainian authorities say they were able to bring down 2 missiles, that they're not always successful.
Yes, because you need to understand from where the missiles are coming. When they are coming from the long distance, that's much easier. And Odessa doesn't have Patriot systems as Kyiv, but we have quite a good system because of the critical infrastructure. However, yesterday, Russians attacked us from the Black Sea, including calibers from the submarines. And submarines are the most dangerous stuff because first the missile is going under the water, and then it is a very short period of time of them to be in the air. So it gives very short period of time for the air defense to detect and to intercept these missiles. That's why any attack against Odessa from the sea is so dangerous.
And Hannah, what sort of security measures are being taken now? Because, of course, these missile attacks are quite random. People live their normal lives every day, and then suddenly there's an attack.
Yeah, you know, in the city, that is the same procedures for the whole year. Definitely it is the air raids, and people are asked to go to the shelters where it is possible, or at least to stay in their more or less secure rooms, like the bathrooms, because they are more protected. There are more air defense coming. That's why Ukraine is asking more air defense systems from our Western partners, because the territory is so huge that you need for each big city the proper system to cover it. But at the same time, definitely in the case, for example, of the coastal cities like Odessa, for us, the best security is to get as far as possible from the Russian fleet. Their sinking of the Moscow ship was very good sinking this way, the same as liberation of the Snake Island, and just to keep the Russian ships as far as possible from the shore. Because in this way, that is like gives us more time for any type of the defense. But the Shaheds is another problem, and you need to understand that Odessa, for the last half a year, predominantly been attacked by the Iranian Shaheds, and Russians are sending them from Crimea. In this case, Ukraine is also now purchasing and asking for the anti-drones rifles.
Okay, Hannah Shelest, we're grateful for your time. Thank you so much for joining us. That was a security analyst joining us from Odessa. Now, as we've been telling you, people are trying to get on with their daily lives despite these missile attacks, despite knowing that this is a country at war. Certainly here in the capital, Kiev, people are trying to get about their daily lives. The cafes are full, the restaurants are heaving. Even now, even though there is a curfew at midnight, people are out and about on this summer's day. Earlier, I went down to the metro here in Kiev, which is also used as a bunker for safety when there are the air raids warning people about Russian missile attacks. Just have a listen to what I found. I'm just going to sort of show you around here in the metro, because, of course, these metros have been incredibly significant during this war. For starters, at the beginning of the conflict, we've just come up onto an escalator, actually, which will give you a better sense. You can probably see how deep we are underground. These metros get used as bunkers, as you say, when the airstrikes start to happen, and then the air raid sirens, many people take shelter, and then the metro stops operating. So it's sort of used for double purposes. But I was just saying, at the beginning of the conflict, this metro was not operational, and many people had brought their mattresses, duvets, pillows into this metro, and apparently the whole space on the platform was being used for people to sleep because they weren't sure what was going on overhead with Russian airstrikes and the tanks that were, the column of tanks, you'll remember, making its way into Kiev. It had petrified the local communities here. So many people had brought pets, their children, families, really spending a lot of time underground here. And you see the hallmarks of this conflict deep in this metro as well. If we can just pan over, you can probably see some of these posters where they're talking about, you know, the work of the military, trying to keep the community safe. There's images of teachers working, and the whole idea and concept of this is that the rest of the community wouldn't be able to operate if it wasn't if it didn't come down to the military supporting them in this conflict. So all over this city, there's a constant reminder of this war, even though, as you can see, people here are trying to get on with their daily lives. They say, look, we know what's going on, but we're not going to allow it to impact us. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.
It could be green. Very green. Or there's blue. Yes. White. White is lovely. Or red. Definitely red. Or just yellow, if that's what you prefer. Oh, purple. Purple's very special. Batumi, Georgia, choose your favorite color.
This program asks plain questions with the help of the unrivaled range of BBC journalists right across the world. And gathered here in this building, I'll also draw on my time reporting on global conflict. Frontline experience that helps me know who to talk to and who to listen to, meaning our analysis is unbiased with absolutely no spin.
Unspun World on BBC News.
You're live with BBC News. I'm Yalda Hakim from the Ukrainian capital, reporting on the counteroffensive and events here across Ukraine. But let's take you back to the UK and the devastating situation with those killings in Nottingham. And as you know, there was a vigil today for two university students, University of Nottingham students who were killed. Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kuma were both 19 years old. Let's go straight to our correspondent Daniel Sanford, who's there. And Daniel, just bring us up to date on what's happening in Nottingham.
Yeah, this is Ilkeston Road, where the two young students were killed at 4 o'clock in the morning yesterday morning. We're now starting to get a better idea of what the sequence of events was that morning. It does seem as if that was the first stage of the attack at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then it seems as if what happened next is that the suspect went about half an hour's walk across the city, where he tried to break into a homelessness hostel. We've seen some CCTV footage where he seems to be trying to break into that hostel. He's pushed away and urged to go away, and then a few moments later a man is stabbed to death, Ian Coates, just round the corner from that homelessness hostel, and he has his van taken from him. A bit later, that van is then driven into the centre of Nottingham. 3 people are run down in the centre of Nottingham. Thankfully, none of them was killed, but one of them is critically ill in hospital. And it was after that that the van was then driven back out of the city centre and was finally stopped by police, and a suspect was taken into custody, having been tasered. So that's the sort of sequence of events, but there's still this unclear motivation behind it all. Counter-terrorism detectives are involved, but are not running the investigation. So there doesn't seem to be a light bulb moment when it was clear that there was a religious or political motivation for the attack. And then that leaves a sort of a mystery as to why it is that somebody would stab 2 young people to death here at 4 o'clock in the morning, people that seem to be complete strangers, and then over the next hour and a half go through that sequence of events, trying to break into a hostel, killing another person, taking a van, trying to run some people down. And so either this is some kind of weird contorted terrorist attack, but it hasn't yet been identified as such, or it is perhaps an even more unusual and strange sequence of events.
Daniel, thank you so much for bringing us up to date on that awful situation in Nottingham, with that visual now having taken place as well. Really sad situation there for so many people affected. Now, we will continue to bring you up to date on the situation here in Ukraine, but I'm just going to change gears and we're going to talk about something that we discuss almost every day on the program, AI and how to control it. Well, today, the European Parliament has approved what is being described as a groundbreaking draft voluntary code of conduct to try and do exactly that, to try and regulate and control AI. Our reporter Simi Jolasowa has been taking a closer look at the plan. Have a listen.
The idea is to govern the use of AI based on 3 levels of risk, starting with unacceptable risk. That is, when AI is used for things deemed so unethical, such as biometric surveillance, or even using it to keep kind of social scores on people. Think Netflix's Black Mirror. Next is high risk, so things that might cause harm to people's health, harm to the environment, or affect people's fundamental rights. For example, an AI tool that scans CVs in order to rank job applicants, which is fine, as long as it abides by certain rules. For example, it doesn't discriminate against applicants based on their race, age, or gender. Next are AI apps and tools that aren't banned and don't pose any high risk.
Okay, that was Simi Jolasowa just giving us an idea of what that plan is. Well, at a news conference in Strasbourg, where the European Parliament votes, the President said the proposed legislation was necessary.
Going forward, we are going to need constant, clear boundaries and limits to artificial intelligence. And here there is one thing that we will not compromise on. Anytime technology advances, it must go hand in hand with our fundamental rights and democratic values.
That was Roberta Metsola, just giving an idea of how necessary these regulations are. Well, we can now speak with Eva Maydel. She's a Bulgarian member of the European Parliament. Thank you so much for joining us here on the programme. A major part of your work is exactly this, looking at AI and also discussions around regulating it.
Absolutely. Yes, that's correct. I work on a lot of the tech files and I'm happy to join you this evening.
Just tell us, I mean, this is something that is a difficult balancing act, isn't it? I mean, on the one hand, you had 1,000 tech leaders sign a letter saying this is getting slightly out of control. We need to sort of regulate and control this. And on the other hand, there are those who say we shouldn't be slowing the pace of this down.
So first of all, I think it's important to note that when the European AI Act was presented, it did not have in mind that it will have to regulate also generative AI. I am glad that those calls came in time and we all felt the political need to provide certain guardrails that also cover generative AI. This means applications such as ChatGPT. So the European Parliament is actually the first parliament to propose also rules that will govern this type of AI.
Yeah, this is a proposal for talks to take place so that you can get into a phase of regulation. I mean, what's the time frame on this?
Well, I have to say that this is the draft of the European Parliament with which it will go into negotiations with the other European institution, the member states and the European Commission. But it's going to be pretty much, a very similar text with perhaps small differences that we will conclude by the end of the year. And then we will put a time frame until which it will be enacted and it will enter into force. Currently, it's foreseen that this will be 2 years. Of course, it is possible that throughout the negotiations, this period is slightly changed.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, the pace in which this technology is evolving and changing, even ChatGPT, we went from phase 1 to 4 quite quickly. Do you think that 2 years might be quite a long time?
So first of all, I think the AI Act is a wonderful opportunity for all of us in society, policymakers, private sector, citizens, and civil society as a whole, media, to actually have the broader conversation of what sort of society we would like to live in. Hence, whether 2 years is a long time, it is, in the sense of that technology is moving extremely fast, faster than it moved 6 months ago, and the pace of technological revolutions will be faster, will be better, and will have a broader effect on society. Therefore, we are already discussing whether we should not have voluntary measures which can be already enacted prior to the act, and that to be done.
Eva, I'm so sorry. I'm going to. Eva, I'm going to have to interrupt you because I'm currently in Ukraine, and we have some air raid sirens that are going off. But I just want to let our audiences know. Eva, thank you so much for joining us. That was Eva Maydel, Bulgarian member of the European Parliament. We do have some air raid sirens that are going off. This just gives you an idea of what happens here in the city. A few moments ago, I was talking about the fact that there are people downstairs in cafes and restaurants, and now these air raid sirens are going off, urging people to go downstairs into the bunkers. So just a sense of how quickly things are developing. But I'm just going to throw it back to the studio, back to Samantha. Thank you very much to our audiences for watching.
Yalda, thank you very much. Well, the situation in Ukraine very tense, as you can see, with those air raid sirens going off in the past few minutes in the capital, Kyiv. My current correspondent, our colleague Yalda Hakim there, obviously going to seek shelter with all the crew and the many people in the city centre. I'll be back very shortly with plenty more of the rest of the day's news. Do stay with us. Thanks for watching.